Alright, so this is what you're going to need. A can of evaporated milk, a can of sweetened condensed milk. You're going to use a cup of heavy whipping cream, 6 eggs, and a little bit of vanilla. And all that's going to get thrown into the blender and whipped up. You need a saucepan to make the caramel sauce, with a lid preferably. And that's 3/4 of a cup of sugar and a 1/4 cup of water. This is going to be the tin that you put the actual caramel and flan in, and that's a 9-inch pan, and this is going to be what we use for the water bath. You have a strainer for pouring in the actual ingredients of the flan through. You want to strain them when you put it in there after it's been blended, and we'll use this for a few different things, like scraping the caramel out of the pan when you lay it in here to set, and at the end when we take this out of the fridge, we're gonna scrape the caramel out of the bottom through the strainer so that you get all that excess caramel on top of the flan when it's finished. So we're setting this to a medium-high temperature. We're going to put the lid on that and keep it covered for about 7 minutes. And while that's going, we'll preheat the oven to 350 and make sure the rack's in the center. So the heavy whipping cream is the only thing you have to measure. So I always put that in first. And it's exactly 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, 1 can of sweetened condensed, and 1 can of evaporated milk, along with the 6 eggs. It says a tablespoon of vanilla extract. I don't actually measure it. I just dump some vanilla in there. Good little glob. It's good. Okay, so the caramel's starting to brown. After about 7 minutes. Could be anywhere between 7 to 10 minutes. But it's starting to brown. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it off of here. And it's about ready to pour into the 9-inch pan. So immediately after you pour it in, it's going to start to harden a little bit, and the 9-inch pan is going to get real hot real quick. So you want to grab it as best you can, make sure it's all evenly dispersed. See that little gap that I'm filling in? It's starting to get hot. Alright, so there, we got the caramel in the base of the pan, and we're going to let that cool for about 4 or 5 minutes. Let that go. Do it on high. I can watch the top. It's all whipped up. Starts hitting the top there. Alright, now this is cooled down a little bit. Before I actually go and pour the flan inside this, I'm going to make sure I fit the foil over the top of it, because while we bake it, we're going to have foil over it. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Now I get it fitted all that way right now before I put the water in the water bath, or before I put the custard in the 9-inch pan, so that I'm not dipping my knuckles in water. Or getting water into the custard. So it just makes it easier to do it beforehand and have it all sized up before I put the custard in. So I'm going to throw some water in here now in this water bath, and it's hot water. I'm not putting cold water. I'm putting hot water just so that that caramel doesn't crack. If I were to put cold water in there, this is still a little warm, it might just crack the caramel, and might not actually even be a problem, but I don't like cracking the caramel before I put it in the oven. Probably wouldn't make any difference. I'm putting about 4 cups of water in here, and that thing's gonna lift up in a second. You want to just be careful that it doesn't slide right under your water stream and end up pouring water all into your caramel. Wouldn't be any good. Okay, so I've got all my wet ingredients all frothed up, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this here. And normally I would not be holding a camera while I'm doing this, so we'll see how this works out. I'm going to attempt to pour through the strainer with one hand. I'm glad it's got that little hook on there. We'll see how this goes. Alright, perfect. Alright, and we're pouring through that strainer. I'm just going to go ahead and set the phone down so I can finish this pour. But this is basically the idea. You want to run it through the strainer so that it doesn't have all those bubbles in it once it's in the pan. Alright, so we got that poured. I'm going to go ahead and put this foil top on this. And once I got this foil top on it, I'm going to add maybe three more cups of water into that water bath so that it, really comes up to about, midway. And then I'm going to pop it into bake. Just about to pop it in the oven. Want to make sure we got that thermometer in there. Ovens run at different temperatures. You want to make sure that you're at the 350 that you want to be at. And then we're at 350, we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this in. And it's going to stay in there for about an hour and 10 minutes. The flan is in the oven for the next hour and 10 minutes. Then we're going to take it out and let it cool. And once it's cool, after about an hour, we're going to go ahead and pop it in the fridge for another 4 hours for it to set. And then we're going to plate it. So I'll see you once we're out of the oven and into the fridge. Okay, we've removed the flan from the oven and we're going to let it sit here for about an hour, or at least an hour, so that it can cool down before we put it in the fridge. Well, I forgot to record plating it, but this is the finished product. The instruction that you missed for plating it is you take a knife after the flan is finished and after it's been sitting in the fridge for 4 hours, and you run the knife along the edges all the way to the base of it, and once you've done that, you place the plate on top of it, and you, holding the pan and holding the plate, flip it over, and it shakes out very easily onto the plate, and this is what you get. I usually take the spatula and will scrape any loose caramel down and run it through the the strainer. You don't have to run it through the strainer, but I do, because otherwise you get little particles of flan and it ruins the presentation. But this is, after all, the finished flan.